Welcome to Believe It or Not, an Interfaith Grand River program. I'm your host, August Edelman, and I'm joined today by Yasmin Mirzaei, who is a member of the Baha'i community.
Hi,
Thanks so much for being on the show,
thank you
Yasmin.
for having me.
So, I guess to get us started off, tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you out in the world?
So, I'm currently a second year psychology student at the University of Waterloo. My plan after I finish my psych degree is to go into teaching. So, I love to spend time with kids. I do a lot of like part-time work with kids in children's programs at the YMCA. And I also spend a lot of time in my neighborhood, which is Herb West in Waterloo. Um, kind of like helping with programs for children and junior youth and youth, all kind of centered around this idea of spiritual empowerment and how they're able to actually contribute back to their own communities.
Very cool. Very cool. So tell me more about that. Like, what does that look like when you're working with those kids, and what are you trying to teach them,
Yeah,
or how does it
so
work?
in Herb West, there's a team of youth who have been serving there for almost 10 years now. Um, And a lot of what we do for the neighborhood is inspired by the Ruhi Institute, which is a Baha'i inspired kind of like universal education institute that aims to help people all around the world understand kind of their purpose in life, to put it, that's a bold statement, but it's true, and how they're able to contribute to their communities, all kind of while like walking a path of service. So there's the children's class program, which offers weekly classes for children to learn about different spiritual qualities, such as love, generosity, kindness, all inspired by the Baha'i faith, but still of value to people of any faith background, even no faith background at all. Um, there's the junior youth program, which is a spiritual empowerment program for young people between the ages of 11 and 15, give or take, adolescent, middle school years,
Yeah.
where young people are able to study stories about people their age all around the world who are going through different kind of like they're overcoming different milestones in their life. For example, there's a story called Glimmerings of Hope, which is about a young boy based in the US who is learning how to stay hopeful and joyful through tough times in his life.
Hmm.
There's a story called Breezes of Confirmation, where a young girl is learning what it means to like seek confirmation from God in the things she does and how she can like kind of follow the path that she knows will be confirmed by God, things like that. And then there's the main sequence of courses offered by the Ruhi Institute, which is a series of currently 14 books that are offered for youth and adults aged 15 and up. So this is a more comprehensive kind of like worksheet workbook type study, where groups come together to study them, and then it's actually through the courses of the Ruhi Institute where we're able to gain the knowledge and experience to then carry out these activities for the neighborhood.
Very cool.
So it's a really cool system that includes everyone from the ages of 5 to the ages of like 100 plus. So yeah, a lot of what we do is surrounding the Ruhi Institute, but then also collaborating with Camino, which is a social service organization that actually has a community center in the housing complex where a lot of us live around. So we've collaborated with them in the past to help with some of their events. They help with some of ours. We recently had a reflection gathering that we hosted together, where we brought together people from all over the neighborhood who were in some ways contributing to the community building process, be it through like a community garden or a yard sale initiative or something like that. We were all able to come together and talk about kind of like the strengths of our community and what we can all do over the next few months to continue to contribute to it. So that was really cool.
That's so cool. What a vibrant community you
Yeah.
were describing. That's so cool. So you must know all your neighbors. There must be that sense of
We try.
yeah.
It sometimes it can be it can be a little daunting. It can be a little scary to, go up to your neighbors and knock on their doors and like get to know them. But personally, for I moved to Canada 9 years ago, and for my first like 6 or 7 years in Canada, I barely knew my next door neighbors by name. It wasn't until I started to make like a conscious effort to go out and meet people that I was actually able to like see myself as part of a larger community, you know. Yeah, it's really nice, especially in the Herblest neighborhood. There are kids who are always outside and playing, and all the kids are really close and they all know each other really well, which you can really feel the sense of community, and it's really nice. I really wish that we saw that in more communities around the country and around the world.
Yeah.
It just takes initiative. I think there's potential for it to happen everywhere, but
Yeah.
it'll take some time.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that,
Hmm.
it's a little scary to sort of go, I'm going
Yeah.
to go introduce myself to these people and I'm going to go say hello and I'm going to invite them over maybe and
Hmm.
bring them some biscuits or whatever. Like it's intimidating to do that. I
Yeah.
think we sometimes see ourselves as impositions on other people. But I
Hmm.
think, one of the things we're kind of learning with Interfaith Grand River and the work that you're doing and all sorts of stuff is that like actually if you do it, people are usually pretty receptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are. And it's not, like you said, it's not until you go out and like have these conversations that you're able to know.
Yeah.
Central, like kind of teaching in the Baha'i faith is to work towards the betterment of all of humanity. So, Baha'u'llah, who is the founder, prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, had a vision of a very united world. And as Baha'is, we believe that this work, well, it's very hard work, you know. It's not gonna be easy to build like a perfect world where everyone is united, but it's work that's going to need the contributions of everyone. So it's not just like a small group of people or like even like just the Baha'is who have to be contributing to this. It's really the entire world. And in order for that to happen, we all need to kind of be united in our thought and in our action. And the first step in doing that is just getting to know each other and just being friends with each other,
Yeah.
it's so important. It's really important, but it's also really hard in today's world
It is.
sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yes.
really interesting. So you mentioned you moved to Canada 9 years ago.
Hmm.
Were you born in the Baha'i tradition?
Yeah, I was born in Dubai in the UAE. Both of my parents were born Baha'i. Um, Three of my grandparents were born Baha'i. I have a grandmother from the Philippines who found the faith later in life. But I grew up in a Baha'i household. Um, in the Baha'i faith, you aren't necessarily born into the religion. Of course, like Baha'i parents usually raise their kids in a Baha'i household. I was exposed to a lot of like Baha'i teachings and principles and prayers growing up. I actually grew up attending children's classes and junior youth groups, which was very formative for me. It really helped me find my faith later in life. But it's actually at the age of 15 where you're able to declare your faith as a Baha'i. So the age of 15 is considered the age of maturity in the Baha'i faith, and that's when laws around obligatory prayer and laws around fasting become binding on an individual. Um, so when I was 15, I declared my faith, and yeah, but I always grew up with that influence around me, which I think was it really helped me kind of like be firm in my decision. My parents were, of course, supportive, like not supportive, but like encouraging of
Yeah.
me becoming Baha'i, but also like exploring other faiths and teachings. But at the end of the day, it was a personal decision, and yeah, I'm happy with it.
Good. That's
Yeah.
good. I mean, that's what we want for everyone, right? To be
Hmm.
happy in the life you're living.
Hmm.
Um, so, I've gotten to have some conversations with some Baha'i folks, I think
Hmm.
people who
Yeah.
people like John and Judith, like and they've all sort of brought different answers to this. So I'm curious about what it means for you. So, are there particular principles in your tradition that are particularly meaningful? Not that there's others that aren't, but that ones that are sort of, oh yeah, those ones stick out, those ones speak to my soul.
Yeah. Something from the faith that really sticks out to me is this idea of service.
Mm.
There's a quote from Abdul Baha, who is the son of Baha'u'llah, who is also the perfect exemplar in the Baha'i faith. We look to him as perfect example of how we can exemplify all of the teachings of his father. And Abdul Baha says that work done in the spirit of service is the highest form of worship.
Mm.
So this idea that in serving humanity in whatever ways we may do that, we're actually worshiping God at the same time, which is really beautiful to me. And something I've tried to pay like specific attention to over the past few years specifically is how I'm able to place service in the middle of my life and kind of have this idea of like serving God and serving humanity like embedded into all the things I do.
Mm.
So thinking like in me being at school, how am I actually able to be of service? Like in gaining an education, I'm able to then in the future get a job where I'm able to serve, or like in the neighborhood, what are like the little things I can do? Um, in which I'm able to teach and serve. And I think that having service at the center of my life really, like, obviously, I'm still trying, I'm still growing, but it really helps to inform everything I do and kind of like give my work kind of a path. Um, so yeah, I really think it's in the arena of service where we're able to gain like like I mentioned the twofold moral purpose,
Mm,
like the things that um, will help us grow, but then also help the community grow.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess long story short, service is important, and it really guides what like my goals are, and I know um, it's a big part of the Ruhi Institute as well. This idea of like how we're able to walk a path of service. Yeah.
Very cool. That's very cool. That's lovely to
Mhm,
hear. And that makes sense with everything you've been talking
mhm.
about so far. So tell me a bit about a time when maybe your faith was a challenge to you, or conversely, where maybe your faith helped you overcome a challenge.
Yeah. So entering my first year of university was bit it was a bit of a shock for me. Um, I remember, like, in one of my psychology classes, we were talking about how belief in God was something that was a barrier to the study of psychology. So it was talked about as, it was kind of dismissed as something that, like, didn't didn't exist and wasn't in line with science, which
Really?
was kind of it was hard for me to grapple with, like, as a psychology student, like, hearing something like this in my discipline that kind of contradicted my faith. Um, it was kind of a challenging thing to like be thinking about, and I had a lot of like doubts about my studies and you know the fields of like psychology and science in general. So yeah, being in an environment like at university where like spirituality and religion wasn't as like talked about and a bit more taboo than I was
Mm,
like used to it being in my community outside of school was it was difficult at first, but it was also kind of something that encouraged me to actually go out and have conversations with my classmates about religion
mhm, mhm.
and about spirituality. I'm part of a club at the University of Waterloo called CABS, Campus Association for Baha'i Studies,
Okay.
um, which is essentially a club where we bring people together, Baha'is and also friends of the faith who are not Baha'is, to have conversations about um, different spiritual themes and kind of topics. And we study writings from different religions that pertain to those themes. Um, so through CABS, I've been able to meet a lot of like-minded people and also invite a lot of my friends to join to have these discussions on campus. And I think we've really noticed that this community is something like this idea of having a community is something that a lot of people are craving. A lot of people on campus wish they had that, but because there are like 50,000 people around you, it's hard to it's hard to know who to reach out to or like how to find these people, and it's really intimidating, like in the
Yeah.
neighborhood, like going and meeting your neighbors. It's hard to go and talk to your classmates sometimes, but it's really clear to me that this is something that people yearn for, like people crave it, they want it, they just don't know how to find it. So it's yeah, I've been thinking about how I'm able to kind of reach out to more of my classmates and kind of break out of my shell a bit because I'm one of those people who's really quiet on campus.
Yeah.
I don't talk to more people than I have to, but that's something that I'm trying to change as well.
Yeah. That's such a great example of that. Yeah, that feeling like you're just the tiniest fish in this huge pond,
Mhm.
and who are you to go up to people and be
Yeah.
like, "Hi, want to be friends?" Like,
Mhm.
it feels very awkward, and it can feel really lonely. So
Mhm.
I'm so glad you have that group, and I'm glad to hear that you're again doing that community building work. You know that you had that framework from your work in Herb West that you were
Yeah.
able to bring to now your university life.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I guess my last question is there something that I didn't ask you about that you were like, oh, I hope she asked me about this. I really want to talk about this idea.
um, the Universal House of Justice, who's the governing body of the Baha'i Faith now, sends messages to people all around the world periodically, kind of helping us in our service and our efforts all around the world. And recently, I've noticed a theme in the messages of the Universal House of Justice, and they're placing an emphasis on the role of youth in community building work.
Mm,
So there's a quote from our Rizwan message from 2024, which is very, very often quoted in the Baha'i community now. and it says that all must surge, but the youth must soar.
Oh,
So in all of this work that we're doing, this is like I said, it's a long process, like building a better world. It's a giant
yeah.
concept, and it requires the work of everyone. So all must surge. That includes the youth. Everyone must surge. Everyone must put forth all of their effort, but the youth must soar. So the youth are really at the forefront of a lot of these kind of social justice initiatives, even outside of like the religious world, outside of the Baha'i world.
Yeah.
A lot of change I've noticed in society is kind of driven forward by the youth and advocated for by the youth. Um, and to me, it's a reminder to kind of use these years of my life very wisely. Like
Mm.
I'll only be a youth for so many more years. Um, so thinking about how I'm able to kind of exercise my energy and also like I obviously don't have as many responsibilities in my life now than I will in like 10 or 15 years. So kind of taking advantage of that
Mm.
um, and using my energy to serve as best as I can. Um, a lot of the friends I serve with in Herb West are also youth and young people, and a lot of the neighbors we're engaged with are young. So that's something that we've all been reflecting on kind of, and yeah, I think it's a really cool concept, this idea of like youth empowerment and the youth soaring. It's cool, but also we can't do that if we don't have the wider community
Yeah.
behind our backs. It's really like a universal effort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one of the cool things about working with young people is that you guys are filled with energy and
Hmm.
hope and great ideas and sometimes you need somebody to be like, okay, here's the system. Let me show you the system.
Hmm.
But there still has to be that room for you guys to blossom.
Yeah.
So that's lovely to hear. Yeah, the idea of soaring, it gave me chills. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, in Ruhi Book 5, it's called Releasing the Powers of Junior Youth, and it prepares people to be able to animate a junior youth group, like I
Mm.
mentioned earlier. There are so many sections that talk about the way that society views junior youth and adolescents versus the way we should be viewing them.
Mm.
So the idea that like society often views young people as like rebellious and they don't want to listen and they just want to have fun or whatever. When in reality they're actually filled with this desire to, affect positive change. Often it's young people who are the most sensitive to
Mm.
injustice in the world.
Yeah.
They have this really acute sense of justice.
Yeah.
And if we're able to power it, if as like older youth and as adults we're able to accompany young people to um, channel their energies towards the right causes, we can see like so many amazing changes happen around us.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
That's beautifully put. Because yeah, it's easy to write off, I think, youth's sort of idealism as sort
Yeah.
of head in the clouds, pie in the sky kind
Hmm.
of deal. But no, that idealism has a place and it
Hmm.
it it is motivating.
Yeah.
And we deserve to live in a better world, all of us.
Hmm.
And if youth want to make that happen, then darn tootin', let's make it happen. Yeah. Well, it has been absolutely lovely talking to you. Like, you're so young and you're so eloquent and you've got such a great vision. And it's really lovely to see.
Thank you so much.
So, my last question for you is if there's sort of one last message that you'd want to share with the people at home, one last thing you'd like to say.
You're never too young or too old to affect positive change in the world. It's never too late to get involved in your community. It's never too late to reach out to a faith group or any sort of like group you want to be a part of. Um, Young people, get out there. We have a lot of work to do. Um, yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, I think that's part of what IDEA is all about, right? Get to know your neighbors. That's what this program's all about.
Mhm.
Demystify your neighbors. And you guys are certainly doing good work to help,
Thank,
help that happen. Thank you.
thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on Believe It or Not.